And Busty Taylor brought Stephen Greer across to me.
Busty Taylor is a crop circle researcher.
Oh yes, quite well known, I think. And Marion was with me, and we were having a cup of tea afterwards. And Busty brought these people across to me and said, told Stephen Greer and his team that I could produce graphs that could predict when things are happening, you see. So Stephen Greer said to me, well, we had some sightings a few nights ago, and I wonder if they would have corresponded to what your graph was predicting. So we actually looked them up on the graph I hadn't. Now this was a hand-drawn graph because I hadn't got the computer system set up at that time. I looked them up, and sure enough, they could have been associated with my graph. So he said, well, that's remarkable. He said, could you give me three more, could you give me some predictions for tonight? We're going out again tonight in Wiltshire. I looked at my graph and I read off 3 times for him in the evening. I think it was 10:30, 12:30 and something later. And off he went with this graph. And we went back eventually to Cheshire, where we lived at that time, and that was that. And for 3 months, but one of the people with Stephen Greer was a young woman called Sharon or Sharia Damiak, and she was the facilitator for CSETI at that time for the team, and we got on very well later, subsequently. But she sent me a letter about 3 months later, I think it was, saying, Roy, don't think we told you, but in fact, your graphs were very well for us because Dr. Greer, I wasn't there myself, but Dr. Greer and his team were still there, and they saw events at all the times you gave him. And the middle one was a close encounter.
First, I'd like to say that what we were doing here is we had heard, of course, the crop circles, and our assessment was that from various reports there was an aerial phenomenon component to it, some type of what we considered probable extraterrestrial activity. And so we had a team come here in 92, 93, 94, and again this year in 1995 to do research in the area, but particularly geared towards moving beyond just a skywatch, but trying to actually make contact with whoever were making these crop circles in some sort of a context of interspecies communications and relations. So we had a team set up in the farm there below Woodborough Hill, a disc-shaped craft catapulted through the zenith of the sky, covering about, I would say, somewhere around 30 degrees of arc, and was quite low, actually, and quite clear, because the air was crystal clear. And you could see the lights going around it counterclockwise in this very unusual pattern. Something very unusual happened. That is that we had a what appeared to be a counterclockwise light up in the clouds, shining down on the clouds, that was making a circular sort of pattern on the cloud tops. We couldn't see the object that was causing this, but it was very distinct and all of us saw it. I'm making a very long story short here, of course.
Yes.
But what happened is that between 11 and 12, a very rapid rainstorm ensued, and we later found that it was centered absolutely over the site where we were researching, that if you went 5 minutes in any direction, it hadn't rained at all. Just past midnight, there was a extraordinary event that then began. We had a member of the team who was in a car behind mine come running around, beating on the windows, and I opened it, and he said, "There's a spaceship coming through the field." And I said, well, I thought he was joking, of course, and I turned, and not far above the field, perhaps 10 feet, was a approximately 100 to 150 foot diameter disc with lights going around counterclockwise, with a sort of a cone or dome on top, with 3 lights on the top of it, 3 or 4 amber lights. Now the lights that were going around counterclockwise were identical, and the shape of this craft was identical to the object that came straight overhead on the 24th at about between 10 and 10:30 that I had seen. So this was obviously orchestrated, and what I think occurred is that this rainstorm was actually artificial. And it was designed to provide an envelope of security wherein this event could take place, because had it been on the night when it was very clear, all these hilltops were covered with people, some of whom were intelligence folks who were trying to see what we were doing on this research project. And as it turned out, the rainstorm ran everyone off, and we were really the only ones left in the area, except for 1 or 2 other witnesses who had been up on Knapp Hill and one other place who saw parts of this event from a distance. Well, at any rate, we were in there, we got out. Unfortunately, our camera people, everyone had left. We just had a skeleton team there. But we did get one of our lights out, and we have these high-powered lights, and we signaled to it, and it signaled back. So what we would do is we'd hit it twice, perhaps 3 times with a light, and it would send back the same pattern back to us from flashing its lights on and off.
Yes.
Shortly after this, one of the amber lights on the top of the dome seemed to detach and go off into the mist. What it was doing is anyone's speculation. I honestly don't know. It then moved closer to us. At one point, it was moving behind some trees in the field. Now, I want you to understand that this was occurring in the same field we were in. In other words, we were along a farm road, and a field began and commenced going towards the Alton Barns. And in that very field is where this craft was located, about 10 feet above the field. It moved towards us as we signaled to it. And we signaled like this, communicating back and forth just by sort of binary hello, as you're there and we're here, sort of signaling for about 15 or 20 minutes. And then it receded and went off into the mist and was lost to us. Now, interestingly, the whole time that was happening, and for the next hour until about 1:30, I was holding a new compass, and the compass was magnetically affected so that its magnetic north changed counterclockwise, the same direction the object was rotating, all the way around the dial. It eventually went 360 degrees right on around. And at about 1:20, I'd have to look at my notes, but about an hour later, we saw another craft, but more distant. As you would be looking here to the right of Woodborough Hill, that was there for just a few moments, but did signal to us. Also during this hour-long period, we had sensory, a sort of electrostatic sensation on our skin, where the hair would stand up on end, and there was other electromagnetic effects in the area. We had the only sound that we heard from this craft was a sort of a low humming sound at one point, but it was very brief. And other than that, this was totally silent, notwithstanding the fact that it was very close. I mean, to give your viewers an idea, it would be as if, as you look across this field in this direction, it would be in this at the end of this field. It would be just a few hundred feet away, and very brilliant. This was not a light in the sky. This was a structured craft with a form and mechanical function. None of the it does go beyond science in the sense that once you make the assessment that these are under intelligent control from non-human life forms, then it becomes more than just science. It becomes a phenomenon that requires a visionary, comprehensive approach that includes interspecies communication, the concepts of interplanetary relations and communication, and what sorts of things we as a people must do to begin to build this bridge between Earth civilization and these other civilizations. We are working with people who have worked with President Kennedy and President Eisenhower, who dealt with the remains of these crashed spacecraft and their bodies. Very credible people. And they, as well as everyone else we're talking with, will tell you that it has been horrifically mismanaged. The secrecy around it has been the most extreme of anything in the modern era. And because of that, it has resulted in a very serious absence of consensus in the world community of how to respond in a peaceful fashion, so that we don't do things covertly that could lead to a interplanetary conflict. And what we're concerned about is trying to build that foundation for relations between human civilization and what other civilizations we may encounter. And there may be one and there may be 1,000. We don't know.